the readiness factor. I'm very excited again about the guests that we have and the topic that we're going to be speaking to today. And before I bring our guests on, I want to be sure that you understand who we are going to be having this conversation with today. I am the president CEO of CMA Enterprise Incorporated, which is the organizer of your business puzzle. But more importantly, who I have with me today, I have Orlando Espinosa, who is one of the co-founders of Emineo Media. Let me tell you a little bit about Orlando. First and foremost, he is an extraordinary business advisor. He was one of my coaches earlier this year. He is a national speaker for government agencies, municipalities, and private sector as well. He is a decorated professional in his field of advisement, having earned also an undergraduate in communications and a master's degree from Nova Southeastern University. So welcome to you, Orlando.
Thank you.
My second guest is Dr. Karen Vieira. She is a researcher extraordinaire, folks. So we are really going to get some insights for this topic that we will be talking about today. And Karen yields from the University of Florida, where she earned her doctorate. Karen, did I get that right? And she's done postdoctoral research. She is a researcher, folks. And she's done some graduate assistance assignments as well as undergraduate assignments from Emory University. She is one of the co-founders and owners of the Research Institute for Brain Health, but she is one of the co-founders or one of the founders and CEO of the MedWriter, which is a research organization that researches and writes and edits all types of literary content for the industry. So folks, please join me in welcoming these two individuals to the platform of the Readiness Factor as we engage in a table chat conversation of managing operating continuity in our organizations in the midst of perpetual staff migration. Boy, that was a mouthful, but welcome, my friends, welcome.
Thank you,
Gail.
It is so exciting to have you at the Readiness Factor. And, you know, we were in a conversation last week, and all of a sudden I said, you know what? We have got to let the world in on this chat about the problem of perpetual staff migration. You know, let me turn it over to you to have some conversation about this, because, you know, is this a temporary problem or is this something that is ongoing? Let's get into this conversation in this chat.
Yeah, I think this is such an ongoing situation and there's a lot that we can talk about. So let's jump in. I mean, I'm ready for your questions and I'll give you my honest opinion about everything.
Yeah.
And we laugh, Gail, because Karen and I, we share a lot of the stage, and we're always looking at the unmute button because I'm like, okay, we're ready. She's,
you know what? On this one, you're allowed to unmute.
Okay, good.
You're allowed to stay unmuted. You know what? You know, what are some of the trends that you're seeing out here? Because, you know, in some of the census stats, you know, I'm seeing that open positions outnumber prospective candidates by 2 to 1. I mean, what are you seeing out there? And what are you researching out there?
So I'm hearing that from colleagues that own other businesses. I'm not feeling that in my business.
Mm-hmm.
So I think really what the experience is in the marketplace is determined by the type of business you have, the network you have, how tapped in you are, where you're advertising, for talent? Like, what are your talent recruitment practices?
Yes.
So one of the things that I tell people all the time is you've got to really think about who it is that's your ideal candidate. Where are they now? And do you have a relationship with them already? Because you might.
Yeah.
And if you do, then recruitment isn't a problem. But I am hearing getting good talent is hard. And I mean, I think it's very different depending on the industry. Like I'm hearing, you know, if you're in an industry that has high turnover rate, you've got, you know, a brick and mortar store, restaurant where you've got basically teenagers, you know, early 20s is your workforce. It's tough right now. Those kids don't want to work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some of them do, but a lot don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, if you can get the benefits, the financial benefits of staying at home, you know, my accountant made a comment to me. I mean, he called me one day and he was very, very stressed. I got worried because I'm like, okay, what kind of news are you about to tell me? And he's like, no, it's not about you this time. I'm like, okay, good. But I'm like, well, what's going on? And he said, Gail, I cannot find people to work.
Yeah.
And he was telling me, he said, people are taking the value benefit of staying at home and getting the unemployment compensation and whatever other benefits are out there, as opposed to coming to work and building a long-term strategy or an intermediate term strategy. And that's not the first time I've heard that. And it makes it very difficult for you to run a business.
I think what people care about has changed.
Exactly. You know, there was a time when people didn't feel that the companies or the organizations out there were not committed to the workforce. And I think that has switched now, where people have said, if you're not committed to me, I'm not going to be committed to you. So, you know, the thing is, where do we find that balance? Because, you know, business can slow down, business can shut down if we don't have the right people in place.
Yeah. And I think that one of the things that we looked at was the trend where a lot of people were sent home to work from home. Right. And while they were home, they were focused on staying entertained and making sure that the kids did their homework and doing, you know, TikTok videos and everything else. And while they were collecting maybe unemployment because maybe they were laid off or maybe people with their own business, they were actually looking at how do they stay afloat with either a PPP or EIDL loan or whatever it was. But I think that the mindset changed. And the reason why it changed were two things. People figured out two things: that they can work from home and still be productive working for another company. And the second thing was that they did not want to go back into the office because they found out that they can still be productive. And I think that it's also the mindset that for a lot of people, something that I've been preaching for years is talking about the importance of, as an entrepreneur. I am an entrepreneur because I control my time. I am an entrepreneur because the 9 to 5 is just not a gig that I want. I can work more hours. I can work crazy hours because we always do. But I think that that's one of the key things, that it's a stress level. It's driving down in traffic. It's being in traffic. It's living in a specific city where people just can't drive. You know, and I think that all of that stuff just culminated to where people started processing. And I think that they started putting in place what was important to them and who was important to them. And I think that that's why we're making changes. The last thing I want to say is a lot of people realize that they can start their own company and start doing things for themselves and start outsourcing. And I see that that's where a lot of businesses were birthed during that time, because people either lost their job or were tired of working in a place where they had to be stuck continuously.
I agree with you that, and I have to tell you, the chat box is blowing up because people are saying, you know, that it takes me 2 hours to get to work if I have to drive there, where I'm losing that time, that productivity time that I could be doing if I was working at home. You know, I remember Yeah, I remember years ago when I was in business and industry, and I used to tell my managers, I was in banking and I was in business development. And I used to tell them, if you allowed me to work at home where I'd have on my blue jeans and my pullover or my t-shirt, I could blow the budget out for the entire department or division because I'm there, I'm focused, but they would always tell me we're not there yet. Well, we're here. So,
yeah, well, not every company is here.
Yeah.
We are here, the three of us.
Right.
And there are some large corporations that are there, but there are some that are not. I have just as many friends that I have that are entrepreneurs and business owners. I have just as many that went the opposite way, and they're still in universities and corporations and government.
Yeah.
And some of them have been called back out to work, and it's been rough. I've literally seen the mass exodus of people just leaving big corporate or government jobs that are stable with good benefits. They've been there a long time because they do not want to physically go back to work.
Yes.
And so that's why I said it really depends on the business. Like, I have a fully remote business. I have no problems hiring. I always have applicants because it's quality of life that people are looking for. And they are so excited that they get to do the brain work they want to do quietly at their desk at home without any interruptions of, colleagues just walking by to chit chat while you're in your deep work, right? Sometimes you get into your deep thinking. And so when you're talking about skilled labor, right? People with degrees and skills, and they need to sit at a desk and focus and get deep work done, thinking work, working from home is better.
Yes, I agree.
You control the interruptions, and there's no problem hiring for that segment of the workforce. Hiring, minimum wage employees to go into a brick and mortar location, I think there's challenges there. It's not that you can't hire, it's the turnover rate is crazy right now.
Yeah, I agree. And I've been in my home office for 34 years. And there was a time when people used to tell me, no one's going to take you seriously as a business person if you don't have the brick and mortar and people. And I'm like, well, my response was always, well, what's the size and term of the contract that you're going to offer me so that I can pay for this brick and mortar and all these people you say I need to have? And it is amazing how that shift. Now, you made a comment, Dr. Karen, about, are the companies out there really adjusting to this new norm that we now have? Talk to me about that. And then I've got some comments that are coming in off of LinkedIn I want to share with you.
Yeah, I feel like some companies get it, but they tend to be the smaller companies that have that agility. The big corporations, I don't even want to start calling names, but some big corporations, they're losing staff. They're not getting it. They value I call it, butts in a seat in a building more than they value actual output. Like, I care about, as a small business owner, I care about productivity, getting things done, results. So my team knows, like, if you can bring results to me, I don't care when you worked, how you worked, show me the results. But bigger companies, the bigger you get, the more it's butts in a seat in a building. And it's so old school, it's painful. It almost just, it's destroying people's morale.
I have a question that just came in, and yes, you're most accurate on that one. The question I have that came in is, how do you go about assessing someone being a good hire traditionally versus remote?
Absolutely. That's a huge, huge issue because with COVID, with a lot of smaller businesses shifting, I know Orlando and I taught a ton of classes about, you know, moving your business online and all the tools and whatever. Hiring was a big one because here's what happens. People are used to hiring people to sit in an office where they can see, is this person working? Is this person productive? Is this person, you know, giving results? When you're in a remote position, you're not going to be able to monitor in that way. You have to monitor in other ways. So for me personally, in my business or assessments, we give skills assessments, we give personality assessments.
Yes.
One of the biggest questions is really understanding, have they worked remotely before? Do they have the skills and the personality to manage themselves and their time effectively? Because some people do not. And I mean, it's not a good versus bad. It's just that you have this skill or you don't. Some people need to be butt in a seat in a building in order for their brain to say it's time to work because the boss is walking by. Other people don't need that, and they will be able to sit quietly at their desk and just get stuff done. And so yes, I use DISC assessments. DISC is actually my favorite one for understanding some of these things, but there are, you know, specific skill assessments that we use as well. So my main business, the Med Writers, we do medical writing. We do, you know, give any applicants a skills assessment. That's an actual writing assignment. We take something, you know, we give them some, let's just call it fake assignments that are from previous actual client work we've done in the past. And then once they pass that, then we move on to giving them an actual paid assignment. We'll pay you for it, for your task, because I don't expect your time for free, but we do want to see what you can do. And it's timed because you're at home. I need to know how long it's going to take you to get this done. Can you focus and concentrate and get your work done, or is it going to take you all day to do something that should be done in an hour because you don't have the skills to work remotely?
You operate very similar to what I do, and because I am probably 90% remote at this point, it is imperative for me to know that the people that I bring onto my team are self-motivated, but even more so results oriented, because you know, a lot of people believe that, well, in the consulting and a lot of the other stuff that we do, it's, well, I'll get to it when I get to it. Nope. We are on a timeline. We have deadlines. Our deadlines move up because we've got to proof, review, re-edit, and so forth. When we're doing consulting engagements for our clients, and if you cannot meet a deadline, you mess us up. And so we also do references. You know, people mistake being a small business. Well, okay, I'm gonna come work for you and that's it. We run our company like a Fortune 50 company.
Correct.
Want to do business with us, everybody we work with is a 1099. So we know you're roving, but we also want to know that you're going to take us as serious as you do this other person that you're over here, because we're going to pay you on time. But knowing that we have done our due diligence helps a lot as well.
One thing I wanted to add, I think that if we start looking at business owners, we need to be a little bit more intentional if we want to grow. I think that too many of us micromanage. And I think that when you look at the large companies that are out there, and I think I read someone talking about how they're at a hybrid going into work and they're wasting more time at work because we have so many meetings for the purpose of having a meeting, to discuss a meeting, to talk about a meeting of a meeting that was going to be a meeting. But then I'm like, this could have been an email, or this could have been just a simple phone conversation. And I think that we waste so much time because we're not, listen, my word for this year is intention. Intentional. Anything and everything that I do has to be with intention. Who I work with, who I bring on board, and who do I actually help people and empower them, because that's the problem. And a lot of us as business owners, sometimes we don't hire the right people because we don't have the right mindset. We can't allow our insecurities to get the best of us. We can't come in and look for someone that we want them to help us, because sometimes, you know what, as a leader, you know, a good leader is willing to share the spotlight, and excellent leaders willing to give it up. And sometimes we can't allow our own insecurities to get the best of us. Listen, I get it. It's our company. It's our baby. But we need to put things in place where at the end of the day, you have to come in and be sufficient with who you are, and then empower other people to be sufficient as well. And listen, I don't apologize for being competent, capable. It's what I used to tell my former students. It's not that I'm conceited. It's just that I'm convinced. I'm good at what I do. But if it takes someone 20 hours, 30 hours to get something done, it's going to take me less time. I know that Karen does the same way. You're the same way, Gail. And they want us to sit there for 40 hours twiddling our thumbs. What? And that's why I've never lasted in a company more than a company that I lasted most with Sally Mae, that I may have lasted 5 years with them. But everything else, I came, I saw, I conquered, and I left. And I think that this is what we need to put in place as business owners to come in and get stuff done, bring in the talent that you need, and get out of your own way of success.
I think one of the things that I've done for the duration of the time I've been in business is that I have brought in people with the understanding that I know I can do this job, but I've got other things I have to focus on over here. And I think that through this whole pandemic, these last 4 or 5 years that we have gone through, that has become even more prevalent, because I can be in 6 or 7 different places at the same time, knowing that, I mean, we've thrown a couple clients off because they were like, how did you get all of this stuff going on? And we're still sitting here looking at you like here in this conversation. Well, it's called delegation and trust and accountability. My people know they got to meet with me once a week. And the once a week is, where are you? What do you need? What's next? And we've got to be able to learn how to do that. Let's shift a little bit. And because I think the audience pretty much has an understanding of our style of management. We're going to trust you. Don't mess up. We're going to give you the instructions. We'll communicate with you. But there is this migration. And I'll never forget sitting in a conversation with my son-in-law. And he was saying, well, you know, I'll give this job 2.5 years. And if I'm not where I need to be, or things aren't happening for what I need to do, then, you know, I'll put myself back in the market. So we're seeing the back end of the millennials, the Gen Xers, the Gen Zers, that has become a philosophy with this age group. They're not patient like we were, was like, well, you know, I'll give it 10 years and I should be where. They're not that patient. If it's not happening within a year to 18 months, they're gone. So how can we, you know, what's your take on that? Because, you know, that's an issue that's not going to end anytime soon.
Yeah, I think that's and this is not a COVID thing. This is a younger people thing. When I was working in corporate 20 years ago, I saw this trend. Depending on the position, like people within marketing, people within certain departments, like us scientists, we stuck around because we didn't want to hop between, you know, the 10 companies worth working for. But, you know, within IT, within marketing, within certain fields, 2 years. It was 2 to 3 years and you were gone. Some positions was 1 year.
Right.
And it was like, oh yeah, they just came from Nestle. Oh, they just came from Nike. Oh, they just came, like they just jumped between Fortune 500s. Oh, they just came from Google. They're here. And it really is a trend where younger people are not looking for a job for life. Right. They are looking for a job to advance themselves currently from one pay grade or one job title to the next. And then they spend a year or two there, long enough to prove themselves, long enough to accomplish something to put on a resume. These are the results I was able to attain for the company. And then on to the next one. And I've seen some of my friends do it where they have jumped very quickly from, you know, technician type level all the way to VP type level within just a few years, jumping from place to place within these big corporations. So it really depends what your goal is for your career. I think, you know, sometimes we got to stop, look inside and figure out, where are you going? What do you want and why? Is it going to make you happy? Because I've seen people, you know, move from Florida to North Carolina to California to Nevada to Washington State to Washington, D.C., you know, just because some of these jobs, like we talked about earlier, they want a butt in a seat in a building. So you got to physically pack up and move. Whereas some of them are remote jobs. So you've got to ask yourself, is quality of life? Yes, there's pay and there's this learning skills and the challenge. I know for me, I love a challenge. I love to learn. But, you know, also if you're on the other end and you're hiring, you got to be aware. And I'm very candid with people. Hey, I'm aware that you're probably only going to be here for a year or two. Is that what you're looking for? What can I help you gain in that space of time to help you move on? And some people say, no, this is a lifetime job for me.
Until tomorrow's opportunity presents itself. You know, it's just, you know, and I see it with my business. And, you know, I sit in that Lean Six Sigma space. I'm a Lean Master, black belt. And I have people all the time come to me saying, well, I'm this belt level, I'm that belt level. But if they come to me and say they are either equal to or just below the belt level that I'm in, I want to have a conversation with you. We're going to have a conversation. I'm going to put you in a simulation, and then I'm going to start calling out tools and methodologies. And if you look at me and tell me, well, you know, I'm going to have to get back to you on that. You're not a practitioner, because everybody that works with us is a practitioner. What you're telling me is you took the course, you took the test, you passed the test, and you gotta be that practitioner, because that's what those are the areas that we set ourselves in. But that happens with a lot of credentials now, because people are very credential oriented. And so you're seeing these resumes that are full of credentials, and we have to be very careful. What do you see employers needing to do in this? It's not a crisis per se, but you've got a lot of people who are left behind to carry the load. And that's difficult, because it is very expensive to hire, retrain, reacclimate people into these new, I hear, microwave societies. Yeah, they want it quicker, faster, and more aggressively on the dollar side. But what can people do? But in addition to that, and this is kind of a double question, we're also seeing younger people who want to experience a work environment, and I'm shifting a little bit too, but they want to experience a work environment that has that diverse workforce, accommodating to who they are now.
And I think one of the things that I wanted to add to what we've been talking about, very simple. We're doing a lot of our young people a disservice, because students are going to college because that's the norm of what they're doing. And why are they going to college? To get a degree. Now, does that degree mean anything? No, because they really don't. They're not going in there. When they come in and they tell me that they got a degree in basket weaving, and I'm like, and what do you think you're going to do with that degree? So listen, as someone that worked with Sally Mae, their spokesperson for years, talking about the planning, preparing, and paying for college, I always tell everybody, be very intentional with what you're going to do with your degree. I started off my degree in psychology because I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I realized that I was not going to be a good therapist because I was going to get to the point and I didn't want people coming into my couch every week. Get over it. Okay. So I shifted and changed. And I think that what's happening now is that we have a lot of people that want to go into the workforce. They don't have their experience, but they believe that their expensive degree entitles them to a paycheck that they yet have to earn because they don't have the experience. And it's almost like you come in and you interview them and they're making demands of how much they're going to get paid, how much time they're going to take off. They want to start negotiating everything before they've been hired. Yes. And I think that one of the key things that we have to look at is we need to be very intentional with our gut instincts. What we see, who we know, you can tell right off the bat. When I look at someone's credentials and I look at all of that stuff, that's awesome. That's great. But I know people that have titles that don't have the capacity to do the job. And I know people that don't have the title that can do the job. And that's one of the key things, that it's about opportunities and all of us. So if Karen and I are in a meeting and we're talking about a proposal that we're going to put in, I am not wasting my time writing anything because Karen is the writer. Karen is the one that I time her to see how long it's going to take her to send me an email with everything that I talked about, because somebody says I don't say much. It's like, you have no idea. I say a lot. But anyways,
say a lot.
I went in, but when I'm done, I give it to Karen, or Karen sends me an email and I'm like, I say, you beat your time. But it's because this is where we need to come in, know your spot in the business and know how to empower other people. You cannot come in and try to control every aspect of the business, because then what you're doing is that you're allowing your own insecurities to shine. But I believe that if we come in and start talking to people and have a dialogue and a conversation and not be, shaken by what's coming out of their mouth by way of trying to impress us, I know when someone's going to work out and when they're not. And I know when I've brought someone in that I brought them in the wrong position and they're never going to thrive because they have a different mindset.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, because you talked about, the communication side of it. Our younger workforce communicates so differently. I'm a boomer. I realized that, I went to a festival in New Orleans this past week, and I realized I am definitely a boomer. But the communication style is so different now. But I've also heard the other side of that. Everybody's on their phone. Everybody's got that tablet. But everybody is on the electronic. Yeah. But when things go wrong in a work environment and you do that exit interview, the first thing you're going to hear, I heard this from my sister. This is years ago when she was working in corporate, and she left because the communication wasn't there. And everybody was always emailing or texting. And she's a techie, but she realized that live, in-person, face-to-face was still very important. And you'll see a lot of people in that migration because they can't get the balance that they need. What can you share with our audience about being able to build some of that balance in there?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to share on that one because I think that is so key. There's a lot that can be done by messages, but at the end of the day, nothing beats this. Getting on a live call, especially where you can see the person's face and read, body language. Even if you're not an in-person team, you're a remote team, nothing beats video live conversation. Just sit down and talk for 5 minutes rather than send messages for 5 hours. And I think that's a skill that some of the younger people in the workforce don't yet have. They don't always want to get on a call, or even worse, get on a video call. There's a lot of pushback about turning video on. Nothing beats it. And so I think, taking a page 2 out of the book, The 1 Minute Manager, as a leader, you've got to make sure that every single person that you manage directly, they know what their role is, what are the results they're responsible for, within what time frame, how, maybe up to them, but they have to have some short description of, this is your job.
Yes.
What you're responsible for, so they know when they are or are not doing their job. There needs to be conversations and check-in, regularly, whether it's a weekly, daily, the needs of each person are different. I don't micromanage my team, like Orlando said. I'm building a business, not a job. I don't want to have to stand there over them doing their work for them. But I'm always available. My team knows that, servant leadership, right? I'm here, I work for you. If you are my employee, I technically work for you, because my job is to make sure you have everything you need to do a good job at what you're doing. And so part of that is me checking in weekly. Let's have a conversation. How are things going? What do you need from me? What can I do to make things better? Quarterly, let's set some goals. Are we on track? KPIs, we're tracking key performance indicators every week. Are we on track? Where are we going? Where have we been? What did we learn? These conversations are invaluable.
So what I'm hearing you say, though, even with a lot of the things that have changed or altered themselves in terms of our norms, and folks, those of you who are on that hiring side, what I'm hearing you say, Dr. Karen, is there are still some traditional things that will not leave the process, that have to be in the process. And there's some flexibility of those who are seeking for you to say yes to them, that they have got to bring. We're they're gonna come with the tattoos, they're gonna come with the different color hair, they're gonna come dressed, but if they can get the job done,
that's all that matters. I don't care what you look like, what you wear, what gender you identify with. None of that is relevant in the workplace. The workplace is about results.
It is.
And so I make sure my team knows what results they're responsible for. And then I check in, because you get what you inspect, not what you expect.
Right.
Correct. Now, you gotta check in.
Orlando, you look like you were going to jump in.
Yeah, I was going to say something. Listen, I think that we have to be very clear in that this is where we have to have a hybrid. And when I'm talking about a hybrid, I'm not talking about, in person or online. I'm talking about a hybrid, that there are some people that they can add value to your business. Young people that are coming in because they understand things and view things differently. I'm a simplifier of information. I do not like these long, drawn out, sermons from people when they want to share something with me. And I think that I learned that, I've got 2 deaf cousins, and when they would sign, it was never, I am going to go to the store. No, it was always me, go store. And that was simple. And I realized in my head, and exactly. And I think that that's the simplification of what we need to do. So as business owners, we also need to come in and learn from them, but also take it upon yourself to teach them, because you're the one that's taking all the risk when it comes to your business. And you can't come in and deviate because you've had success. Where I was talking to someone the other day, and they were telling me, hey, listen, you know what, I'm here and I'm doing this with my dad, but he's giving me pushback because of this, because of this. I said, would you stop? I said, would you stop making your dad feel like a failure? Because he has had this business for over 50 years.
Longer than you've been walking the planet.
Yeah, now you're coming in and I said, do it in phases. And remember, he didn't need you to get to where you're at right now. You've only been there for 3-4 months. So why don't you sit back, watch, learn, observe, and then when you see everything that he's done right to get to the business where it's at right now, then you can come in and give suggestions, but do it in phases. Because if you come to me with too much stuff, I'm going to reject you. And it may be great ideas, but my brain isn't working like that. My brain works in phases. And when I analyze the phase, this makes sense, this doesn't make sense. And I think that this is what we have to come in, listen to everybody, see what contributions they make, but make sure that you stay consistent, because I've seen businesses fail because they want to come in and adapt themselves to these new mindsets and these new, degrees and new aspects of. But if that's not what your business is going for, or when it started, I believe in evolving as a business, but I think that you still need to stay true to your core values and be consistent.
Yeah, yeah. Well said, well put. I'm getting a lot of amens. They're like, Orlando doesn't talk very much, but when he does, he preaches. So
I'm going to be like, well, we're going to pass the offering plate.
Fire going.
They don't even know he used to sing in the choir.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
He gonna bring it.
Well, this is a topic that we could talk about forever. And, one of the things that, as I was prepping for this conversation again today, is that, a lot of what is happening is that whole, people can still get cherry picked out of the bunch of qualified candidates by their name, by the look that they have, by the school that they attend, and looking at blind resumes or blind interviews where the interviewer cannot see who that person is most appropriate now to have. But you got to understand the manner in which our workforce looks like and the expectations that they have. Our younger people want that work-life balance. I was 30 when I started my own company. And I guess you could say I'm still kind of a millennial, Gen Zer, even though I fit in the baby boomer age, because I wanted that quality of life balance. I had a young child, but I wanted to still earn a living. And it is important for, these corporations out here, these large companies, government, to understand, we know you have invested a lot in brick and mortar. We do know that. But there is some adjustment you're going to have to make, because you're going to have a lot more empty space because people are going to be making that decision to not be in the traditional workspace anymore, unless you're offering things like childcare on site if they've got children, the healthcare benefits that are affordable, that don't eat up, the advocacies that need to happen. So there are just so many things that need to be looked at on both sides so that we can meet in the middle. We have a couple more minutes, and I would love to get your last insights for us before we leave our audience. And any last words of wisdom that you can share? This went fast.
I'll go first. Orlando's being quiet today, which is totally not his personality. So I think, leadership is such a big part of running a business or running a department. And it's one of those things I always say, Rome wasn't built in a day. I've been a part of a leadership course for like the last 2 years, right? And it's making small changes in how you do things, whether it's your hiring practices, whether it's your training, onboarding, or like I said, just making sure every single member of your team understands what they're responsible for, what's their role. And, I'll highlight something that we started with, Gail, which is that it is hard to recruit in this market, but it doesn't have to be. It's who do you know? Where are you networking? What are the true benefits of the role? Because it may not always be about pay. It may be about other things that matter. Is it remote? Is there flexibility? Is it, whatever? You got to understand what matters to the typical type of people that are going to be applying for the role that you have, and think like them, put yourself in their shoes, what matters to them, and advertise that heavily. I remember Orlando and I doing an HR class that we taught a bunch of years ago with the Haitian Chamber in Miami. And we showed some headlines of like, this was a job ad that really drew people in. And it was like, because it was what matters to them, the benefits that you're putting out there. So just always lead with the benefits.
Yeah. 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 I heard those three little letters, KYC, know your customer, and it works on both sides of the fence.
It does. As a leader, you got to know the people you're trying to recruit, and you got to know your team.
Right. Right.
I think that for years, I worked with middle, high school, and college students. And what I wanted to do was to empower them to have common sense, the way that I view the world. And I've always said this, that educators should teach students how to think, not what to think. And I think that if we start empowering people at our jobs, it's looking at the talent, and it's also looking at allowing them to have a voice. Because I know that for me, being that employee that was always bored, I never wanted to come in and take someone's job. I wanted to come in and get paid for what I needed to do, and I needed to leave. I didn't want the title. I didn't want the position. I didn't want none of that stuff. Could I do it? 100%. But just the amount of reporting that goes on in a corporate setting, in a corporate world, I don't do any of that stuff. But I think that one of the key things that I've seen where businesses have been able to thrive has been, as a business owner, don't live in that fear that someone's going to come in and take what you built, because my talents are my talents. No one can do what I do. Why? Because what makes my business stand apart? Orlando Espinosa. And if I come in and there's someone else that has a talent and does what I've done, listen, I've had people come into programs that we've taught trying to steal our curriculum, our programming, and I'm like, go for it. Yay, we
hand it over,
but you will never be able to work it. So
you can't bring the secret sauce, which is
there you go. There you 100%.
Go.
And you see really a lot of that. You see a lot of that with migration, where people acquire the skills and then they hope to take it with them, but that's what they sell when they go to the next assignment. But then they potentially fall short because they don't have all the secret sauce.
100%. And what I wanted to add, just because if you notice this was the start of a conversation. And because the conversation was pretty much that we were looking at and seeing eye to eye, where it was like, how do you further this dialogue of this conversation? Because I think that that's one of the key things. I don't live in fear. I don't live thinking that someone's going to take what I have, because competition is out there. I welcome it. But let me tell you one thing. If you don't work with me and you go with the competition, then you're doing yourself a disservice, because guess what? Nobody operates and no one does the work that I do. Nobody does the work that Karen does. Nobody does the work that Gail does. And when we join forces, a lot of people are going to feel insecure, and that's okay, because we live in a society of people trying to actually play catch up with some of us. And that's okay. I think that that's one of the key things that when I look at competition, you don't have to have a lot. Listen, how many KFCs are in place right now? And Chick-fil-A has surpassed them in sales because they were consistent. They're good. They're closed on Sunday. So that's why I also say, be mindful and take time off for yourself. But I think that that's the one thing. You don't have to have a lot. You just have to have the secret sauce that Karen was talking about. And that secret sauce is yourself, but then bring other people. They're going to add a little spice to that sauce that can help you scale and grow your business. And don't be afraid of them coming in, learning and going off on their own, because that may, at the end, it's not going to be a competitor. Karen and I talk about this. We're not competitors. We build relationships, because even though we may do a lot of the same things, there's nothing better than going on a journey like we are as entrepreneurs with other like-minded businesses, because being an entrepreneur is a lonely journey. But when you have other like-minded people, it becomes an adventure.
But we all understand we all understand what our lane is and how to stay in it. That's the key. Oh my gosh, you all, thank you for everything that you have shared today. I say to our audience once again, whether you be on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, or right here in the chat room with us, thank you for joining us. And if you have some additional conversation that you would like to continue with us, I have on the screen Orlando's information, Dr. Karen's information, and you know I'm always there. So give us a call, schedule some time to chat with us some more. We do offer a great value proposition. look on our events calendar on our website, www.cma-ent.com. We've got an event coming up in August that will work you through team continuous process improvement. That is what we call Kaizen excursions. So please join us for that event. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much once again for joining us on the Readiness Factor. We will see you next month on the second Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Take care.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Gail. I've got to run. My son has an appointment.